For years, we have been complaining about big tech censorship. We have been complaining that people's opinions are being stifled, that YouTube is manipulating politics in this country, and it is a bad thing. Just recently, Facebook's oversight board announced that Donald Trump will remain suspended, and it's up to Mark Zuckerberg to determine if Trump should get his Facebook account back. Censorship is bad because we have a small group of Silicon Valley oligarchs who determine what opinions are allowed. They think they're being reasonable, but as we've learned from the Joe Rogan podcast episode I did with Jack Dorsey and Vijay Gadde, they live in such an extremist bubble. They think that moderate liberals are far right and that a conservative or someone center right should be banned because they're dangerous. Now, while all of this is going on, I love how the left repeatedly rejects the fight, insults the conservatives, call them free speech warriors. They're not neutral. They don't actually care about free speech. Meanwhile, the actual people who care about free speech have been begging you. Are you going to stand up for the people's right to speak their opinions, or will you sit there until you get banned? And of course, once you do, you'll come crying, please, this is not fair. We must fight for free speech. Oh, that's what's happening today. Natalie Wynn, ContraPoints. You may be familiar with her YouTube channel. I think Natalie does a decent job, makes excellent quality content, and has some really good arguments, some of the best, actually. In some of her videos, she actually explains the nuance with Antifa and their opinions, and even is critical of some of the more far-left violence and their poor tactics, which are actually bad for the left. I can respect that. But in the past, while certainly not the worst person in terms of tribalism, Natalie Wynn has made posts about free speech warriors as others. Instead of just saying, I agree with free speech, you're right. Why is it that every single time, okay, not every single time, but typically, when I see a leftist get censored or suspended, I'm right here to say, no, it's wrong. How about the BDS movement, boycott, divest, and sanction of Israel? We saw a lot of people on the left saying, see, we're being censored because we're critical of Israel. And I'm like, you should be allowed to criticize anyone you want. I agree. You should have free speech. They shouldn't ban you. When Occupy Wall Street accounts got shut down, why was it that I immediately spring up and say, I agree with your right to speech? Twitter should not remove this. Why is it that when Destiny, the leftist Twitch personality, when he got banned from Twitch, I said, this is wrong. It was wrong that Destiny got banned. He got booted from the partner program on Twitch for defending Kyle Rittenhouse. You see, I understand the importance of free speech. I will defend it for the far right, the far left, up, down, whatever, because I know if we let them erode these cliffs, eventually we are the ones who will fall off and come tumbling down into the ocean. But I guess the left is more interested in tribalism, and you can really see it. Natalie Wynn tweeted, 3 years and 4 million views after upload. Today, YouTube has age-restricted my video incels. Age restriction significantly reduces a video's visibility, requiring viewers to be logged in and over 18 to watch, and suppressing it in the recommendation algorithm. That, I think, is wrong. I think it's wrong. I think if people are going to be treated equally on YouTube, then somebody who has an opinion, especially ContraPoints, who's made a video which is just an explainer from a leftist perspective on incels, it shouldn't be age restricted. However, there's a big difference between taking away someone's ability to speak and actively promoting them. I think it's important that if YouTube is going to be saying we will actively promote content, then people should be treated equally. But I also think it's important to point out, YouTube does not owe you marketing. YouTube does not owe you advertising. When Steven Crowder got kicked out of the partner program, I said this. When you're out of the partner program, you can't make money on ads. YouTube is under no obligation to be an ad sales division for you. You can run your own ad sales division. I actually have more than one manager for different ad sales. YouTube ads, which appear, is an automated system that YouTube uses, which is effectively selling ads for my content, and they're giving me the majority cut. I got to tell you, YouTube takes a lot relative to any ad manager, but I also understand they're losing money on the video. So listen, people should be allowed to speak. People should be allowed to use YouTube to speak their minds. But I just find it hilarious that all of a sudden now you're going to start seeing these leftists say, we must defend free speech. And of course, like clockwork, people like me will come out, the free speech warriors, as they say, defending Natalie Wynn and her right to have her content and not be suppressed. But I want to point out, just before we read more of her tweets, she said suppressing it in the recommendation algorithm. Welcome to the party. This happened to tons of political channels because leftists were lying about all of us. And where were you to stand up for our free speech? You weren't there. In fact, you were mocking the others, and you're mocking free speech advocates as others, as free speech warriors, and criticizing their motives. Meanwhile, we all saw our numbers take a hit. Now, I can complain that YouTube will prop up the left and diminish the right and anybody who dare challenges the left, because these researchers refer to channels like mine as exclusively critical of the left. Maybe there's something wrong with the left in this country when they don't have principles, when they mock you when you're down and then demand you come to their defense. Well, here's what happened. YouTube sends a message to Contra. We want to let you know that our team has reviewed your content and we don't think it's in line with our community guidelines. As a result, we've age restricted the following content. We haven't applied a strike to your channel. Your content is still live for some users on YouTube. Keep reading for more details. What age restricted means is says they don't think it's suitable for younger audiences. It will not be visible to users who are logged out, are under 18 years of age, or have restricted mode enabled. It won't be eligible for ads. You're under no obligation to have them be promoting your content for you to new users. Now, recently, something similar happened to me. I tweeted, YouTube has claimed our vlog is violent and inappropriate. Amazing. What is this, Team YouTube? We are riding bikes and skating around. Now, there's nuance here. See? My video on my vlog was literally us just walking around and skateboarding, and that was it. And we got age restricted. Now, if YouTube wants to legitimately claim that content isn't allowed, so be it. I personally thought it was unfair, as I'm sure ContraPoints thinks the age restriction of her video is unfair. I think you're entitled to complain and say, hey, I take issue with this. I want to appeal this decision. My point right now is just that they don't owe me or her or anyone else anything. If YouTube wants to lock down my stupid vlog, fine. But let's be honest about what they're doing. The main issue I take here is I'll show you some of the tweets from ContraPoints in the past, is this ignorance and tribalist behavior, which results in their own downfall. Now, ContraPoints is correct on many issues. Check it out. She goes on to say, YouTube's community guidelines are supposed to make it clear for creators what content is allowed on the platform. But the guidelines are enforced very arbitrarily. Actually, worse than arbitrarily. Video restriction removal is often triggered by an easily abused flagging system. Hey, I remember talking about this 3 years ago. Randomly enforced restrictions are more restrictive than ones that are consistently enforced. If enforcement is consistent, you know what the rules are and you can work around them. But arbitrary enforcement forces you into superstitious, neurotic self-censorship. 100% true. You don't know what exactly you can get away with, so you start bleeping, blurring, and omitting anything that could possibly be evocative of sex, drugs, violence, profanity, hate speech, or bullying. It's bad for art. It absolutely is. There was a period where I would put up a video, and then there would be like a small thumbnail from an article that referenced something. I would get demonetized, and I would email Google, because I have a content manager. I'd say, why was this video demonetized? And they'd say, oh, because for 5 seconds at minute 9, there's a thumbnail that references a guy streaking in a football match. And I'm like, I didn't even see that. And they're like, you got to be aware of what you're showing in your videos. I said, that's a good point. So I started just blurring everything. And there was one video, I think I blurred literally the whole video. And I was like, at least I can talk about it, but I can't show you what I'm reading. Eventually, YouTube relaxed a little bit and released this. I think that's insane. Okay. I mean, we don't have I got to be honest, broadcast standards are a bit more strict, but the politicking is what's freaky. There's certain political opinions you're not allowed to have. Tucker Carlson can say whatever he wants about vaccines and they'll yell at him. On Fox News, on YouTube, you can't even reference certain scientific studies done by prestigious universities. Natalie goes on to say, suppose you're a history YouTuber. Can you show images of Nazi Germany for educational purposes? Images often shown in school to under 18s. According to the community guidelines, yes, but in practice, such videos are often restricted or removed for hate speech. That's true. Suppose you're a feminist or an educator. Can you say the words pedo, rape, clitoris? YouTube is often the only chance to educate teenagers about these topics before Pornhub does. But on YouTube, this kind of content is very often age restricted. We'll see what happens to this video because I quoted Natalie Wynn. because most of my funding comes from Patreon. I'm in the fortunate position of not being financially reliant on the erratic whims of this broken system, so I can afford to take risks. But most creators aren't so lucky. Free speech should be reclaimed as an essential leftist issue. We should not surrender the most fundamental civil right to Google LLC in the name of deplatforming rightists and curtailing harassment. It's not worth the cost. I agree with that. If only you had spoken up years ago when my channel and other people's channels were being targeted, when I would speak up for the Occupy Wall Street activists getting censored and the conservatives getting censored, when I did an interview with Oliver Darcy, now of CNN, where I said it's dangerous that the alt-right is being censored. They have nasty opinions, but this is a slippery slope, and look where we are today. And we've warned all of these leftists over and over again. I think it was Glenn Greenwald who said, if there's one group of people that has a complete inability to learn, it's liberals who keep cheering on censorship, thinking that it will never come back to haunt them and they'll be censored. So here we are. Now, Natalie had a response from YouTube who said, thanks for bringing this to our attention. We passed it along to our team and sent an email. Said, I didn't get the email. They said, that's strange. We'll inform the team, stay with us. Sorry for the confusion. It should be in your inbox. Let us know if you have any questions, whatever. I don't know. They're saying they're not going to reverse the decision. And they've sent more information explaining why they did it. So you know what I decided to do? ContraPoints is a leftist YouTuber and heavily promoted by the mainstream media. ContraPoints was able to grow her channel massively with features in large prominent publications. Good for her. ContraPoints makes excellent content. I really enjoy the videos from ContraPoints. They're really, really good. And they're well thought out. I think I disagree with a lot of the arguments, a lot of the opinions, but you can't say for the most part that it's in bad faith or they're bad arguments. They're interesting arguments. I just think you need counterpoints to ContraPoints. So with that being said, of the leftist YouTubers, I think Contra is absolutely one of the best. I'm just frustrated when you do a search for, free speech from ContraPoints and you can see just the othering. This whole rhetorical move of responding to criticism with stop attacking my free speech needs to stop now. The number one reason conservatives like Milo is that he's the best piece of evidence supporting their leftist war on free speech story. So SJWs are part of a victim cult, but every time someone criticizes you, you complain about your free speech being taken away? I don't know. Maybe when people were tweeting learn to code, maybe if you were actively paying attention to what the concerns were, maybe when I had videos removed for saying the name of a newsworthy individual, you would actually pay attention. I don't think ContraPoints is the best example of leftist hypocrisy in this regard. It's just frustrating because this is more of an example of, tribalist ignorance. Ignoring the real argument and focusing on the straw man. Oh, sure, it's easy to call out a bigot on Twitter who said something racist and got banned and then say, you're just being criticized. No one's attacking your free speech. And ignore prominent figures or people like Noam Chomsky who have made the same arguments for decades. We must protect the speech even of those who are most abhorrent. Here's one thing Natalie said. Free speech warriors are not neutral advocates. They have a very specific set of sympathies. That's a straw man. So instead of ignoring the actual principled positions of people like Noam Chomsky and the academics and individuals and journalists, the real ones, who are actively saying we should not allow big tech platforms to funnel people in certain directions, to shut down certain opinions, people should be allowed to speak. You criticize the straw man. You take the straw man approach. It's hilarious. Natalie Wynn said, since 2010, Islamist cleric Anwar al-Awlaki's lectures have been censored by Google by order of Congress. Not one centrist ever complained. Are you kidding me? I'm sick of it. How many times have I done videos complaining about what the U.S. government did to Anwar al-Awlaki and Abdurrahman al-Awlaki? This is duplicitous. It's just, you know what? This is what I can't stand. Because people like us of principle are willing to defend the free speech of hypocrites, liars, and sophists, we lose. Because they will not defend free speech when it's the free speech of people of they don't like or their political rivals, and we will. Now, I'll criticize Candace Owens when and Donald Trump when they both said you shouldn't be able to burn the American flag. No, I said you should be able to if it's your property and it can be done safely. You can do what you want with your property. I believe burning the flag is free speech. In fact, I agree with Penn and Teller that burning the American flag is one of the most, what's the word that described it? It is the epitome, the perfect exemplification of free speech. The fact that you can burn the flag, which represents the free speech, the burning of that flag truly represents the freedom that the flag represents itself. I personally will never burn an American flag. I will fold it properly. I will treat it properly. Will never touch the ground because I think this country is fantastic. But I'm just sick and tired of these people coming out and ignoring the facts, hyper-focused. Look, maybe it's just me. Maybe there's like 10 real people on the planet. What do I often say? Leftists love guns. Leftists are not anti-2A, they're pro-2A. They quote Karl Marx all the time. Fake leftists, I guess, and liberals, neo-lib corporate Democrat types, I try to make sure that I represent the left properly in their arguments. When they say they're in favor of workers' rights and socialism, they're not saying communism. Their genuine belief is that the workers control the means of production. They're just not mature enough to understand how power dynamics works and what ultimately happens when there is a system where a party is in control. But they are in favor of guns because they want a revolution. They don't like liberals, and they call me a liberal, and I respect them for doing it. There was a funny post on a far left Reddit forum where they were like, Tim Pool is a liberal, F him. And they were like, yeah. And I'm like, thank you. It's the neo-libs, it's the faux progressives who call me conservative. But I'm sick of it because I can stand up and defend the free speech of, say, ContraPoints or any one of the other individuals on the left, and they will hyper-focus on straw man arguments. And I can say the same thing for many on the right when they'll hyper-focus on the left. That's the point. So the issue is, as I've stated 1,000,001 times, conservatives do not control cultural institutions. Conservatives complaining about Antifa and saying they hate guns doesn't really have an impact on anybody because they're not at CNN or MSNBC. They have a right to be wrong, and I'll say they're wrong. I've been saying abolish the police for some time, and now even the left, I love it. A bunch of leftists are tweeting at me saying, your opinions on abolishing the police are wrong. And I'm like, so I agree with you and you say I'm wrong? These people only care about tribe. What's really fascinating in my response to what Natalie was saying, what's truly fascinating to me is you can see the thought process of these individuals. My thought process is based on systems, logic, and principle, for the most part. And their arguments are based on people and power. So an example, I said in response to this to Natalie Wynn, YouTube doesn't owe you any marketing, which I've said for years. Like I mentioned, when Steven Crowder got kicked out of the partner program in his spat with Carlos Maza, I said, I think it's ridiculous. It's a double standard, but I don't think YouTube owes anyone running an ad division for them. I certainly think he should be treated fairly and equally and have access to ads same as everybody else because the reason he got banned was incorrect. It was out of context. But the point is, should people be treated equally? Yes. Should YouTube not be the arbiter of morality? Yes. Does YouTube need to be promoting my content? No. Do they? They do. So people are like, you complain all the time that YouTube won't promote you. No, I don't. YouTube promotes me like crazy. I do complain that there are many things I can't say. So what did I do? I created my own website where I can post whatever I want. I don't like what YouTube does. I think YouTube should be fair and neutral and not an arbiter of neutrality. And I think they should treat the right and the left equally. The problem is there's this, I forgot what it's called. It's like 4chan's law or something, that any social media network free of moderation will inevitably become a right-wing platform for whatever reason. And that only with moderation can the left maintain some kind of power. I think that's true. And I think that's why you don't see, when you search ContraPoints Twitter, all of the times she fought for free speech. Only when you go from, look at this. If Breitbart fires Milo over the pedo thing, do we get to accuse them of waging war on free speech? God, I hope so. And then from 2017 till today, over 4 years later, free speech should be reclaimed as an essential leftist issue. We should not surrender the most fundamental civil right to Google LLC in the name of deplatforming rightists and curtailing harassment. It's not worth the cost. I just cite Noam Chomsky. Big fan. He has this really great speech. He was talking. They were arguing them. He was pro free speech, even for the far right. He's like, we have to, otherwise they'll come for us. And I'm like, you are correct, Noam Chomsky. But 4 years of nothing. Natalie Wynn mocked those fighting for free speech. Now all of a sudden realize it. So I'll say this. welcome to the fight, and thank you. Even if Natalie, if I'm frustrated with the circumstances, I am not personally frustrated with Natalie as an individual. I actually think Natalie does a great job and makes excellent content and has made good arguments that I respect, but though I disagree with. It's just frustrating that the left, who mocks the fight over free speech, the ability for us to challenge massive multinational corporations, is poo-pooed, mocked, frowned upon, insulted, lied about. But now, once they get censored, oh no, we must reclaim free speech. Sure. See, it's about power and tribe. The people coming out and defending Natalie are tribalists. And there are certainly tribalists on the right. Ron DeSantis isn't so much a free speech kind of guy, even though I like some of the things he's been doing. And there are a lot of conservatives who are not pro-free speech, and they're only saying they're pro-free speech because their opinions are being censored. Sure. They're no different from Natalie at this point. However, at the very least, when I see conservatives being censored, I say that's wrong, they shouldn't be. When I see the left being censored, I say that's wrong, they shouldn't be. When people say Donald Trump is a fascist, I say that's not true, you're insane. When the right says Antifa is anti-gun, that's not true, they're very pro-gun. And I think it's very important to point out when they say that Antifa is the militant wing of the Democratic Party, I say, they hate the Democrats. But there is a creepy alliance between the two. I think accuracy is important. But maybe there's just very few people who actually feel that way. So here's what I say to people like Contra and people on the left. Thank you and welcome to the fight. Please do not let these massive multinational corporations silence our speech. I believe that Contra's incel videos should not be age restricted. I think it was very well done, as most of her content is. And I oppose the restrictions. I don't think YouTube needs to be recommending anything to anybody. But how about this? If you're going to choose what gets recommended, just get rid of all of it. Go back to the neutral timeline. Make it so that when people go to YouTube, they just see the latest posts from the pages they subscribe to. No more recommendation. No. What do they call it? Suggested user lists. None of that stuff. If they're not going to be doing that, then people should be treated equally. The problem is algorithms will never be equal because they're always going to be favoring something or another, and therein lies the big problem. I just wish they didn't mock the free speech fight when it was going down. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.